welcome to Curious Life. Today I figured I'd give you a bit of an update on where we are with the house and what's been going on. If you're not aware, at the start of the year we decided that this is the year that we are going to finally work on our house and do all of the renovation and home maintenance things that we've been avoiding for almost a decade now. And it kind of feels like the house was listening, because since then it seems like every few weeks something else breaks that we need to deal with. So I will show you all of that, and also I've had a bit of a realisation while dealing with all of these breakages that one of our big problems is that we have absolutely no tool organisation, to the point where we never know where anything is or even what we own. So one of the big things I want to do today is find all of the tools and organise them. So I will show you later in the video how I've organised all of our tools so that they're accessible but also put away tidily. But right now, let's catch up a little bit on all of the things that we've been doing, and let's start with the shower. I think we mentioned in the boiler renovation video that we'd replaced our shower, but I didn't really show you that because it hasn't been a smooth process at all. And it's also one of the things we haven't yet managed to fix. So we have put up with a leaking shower for years. And while we were having the boiler replaced, we figured we would also get a new shower. But the plumber wasn't entirely confident with it, which we found out when he was halfway through the process. He did get it working, but a few days later we noticed that it wasn't entirely working like it should, and that it was likely an electrical issue. So we turned off the electric to the shower completely, so it's safe, but it means we don't have a working shower, even though it's new. So we thought about it for a little bit and we decided we wouldn't have the same guy back to fix it, even though he absolutely would have if we'd contacted him, and he's a lovely guy and he was great at other things that he did. But we decided for this, because he wasn't very confident, we'd rather get someone out that is confident with working with an electric shower, and that we can then make sure it's fitted properly rather than risk it not being safe. So we haven't dealt with that one yet because we've been diverting our house budget to other things. So this is something that's on the list to be fixed soon. But let's take a quick look at what we have been spending money on, which is mostly the garden. Now, I actually said in our initial video this year that I wouldn't be focusing on the garden this year, but we were having a lot of conversations about the house and the garden and how we feel about everything, and we kind of decided last minute that actually we do want a nice garden, but not just a nice garden, we want a productive one, where we can try and grow some of our own fruits and veggies. So we've been buying tools and things like raised beds and have been working on the garden really hard. And that's just so that we can get things growing at the start of the season and hopefully learn how to grow food. But this is something that neither of us have done before, and we wanted to get ourselves ready for spring, which is now here. It is quite a process because it has meant redesigning the garden layout completely. And part of that is we've been digging up a substantial part of our lawn in order to have beds and planters and things like that. We do have a very long-term plan for the garden and it's in several phases. But right now we are on phase 1, which is focusing on the vegetable garden section. And it's not going to be pretty for a while, we just want to get it functional first and we can move on to the rest of the landscaping later. That's the plan anyway. I'll be doing a video on the garden transformation at some point, but that's quite a long way off right now. If you guys would like, I can do some progress videos every now and then, because it's going to take a couple of years and a lot of our energy is going into it. But shall we head back inside? The next thing to break was our dishwasher. Although it wasn't the dishwasher so much as it was the pipework behind it. We mentioned in previous videos that this kitchen is an absolute nightmare for water leaks and issues, and part of it is the ancient pipework that has been done really badly. And we don't pull our appliances out to clean very much because if we do, it's going to break. And every time we do, it does break something. But what we did do was get our dripping kitchen tap fixed. And for that, the plumber needed to pull out the dishwasher to turn the water off, and in doing so, he pulled the pipe away and caused a leak. It wasn't his fault, that is just how the pipework is down there. And then that caused the mess that you're seeing us try and clean up. It's all fixed again. I mean, it's going to always be a problem until we get the kitchen fixed, but it gets really gross behind here when everything leaks. Which is kind of why we have the philosophy of trying not to touch anything. So this is something that we're going to have to put up with for as long as we can, because we want to get the entire kitchen done at some point, but that's really expensive and we need to save up for it first. But sticking with white goods and appliances, the next thing to break was our dryer. I don't even really know why or what happened, but it was old, so it just died one day. We actually tried not to replace it for a while, and we're going to try and dry indoors and possibly outdoors, but it was still cold and the air was damp and it just kept on raining, so it was taking one load of laundry days to dry inside. Which is the footage that you're seeing. It caused chaos in our little house. So we caved and we had the old one recycled and replaced. But this should start to give you a little bit of a clue of where all of our house renovation budget money has been going. It's been going on fixing all of these things that we didn't know we were going to need. But that's life, and I'm just glad we had set up a budget for dealing with these types of things at all. I'm also realising now that most of our money has gone on kitchen appliances in one way or another, because we also had an issue with our oven. I was in the middle of cooking us a roast dinner when I realised that the oven was no longer warm, and I checked and it had indeed broken. This is the same issue we had a few years ago while cooking our Christmas dinner. So luckily we did have an idea on what to do about it. It was just a heating element that needed replacement, and Blaise did do this herself, and I'm so glad for her knowing how to do this because I would not have had a clue how to fix this. And I think we might be at the end of the things that we've had to fix or replace, and I can finally talk about tool storage. If I've learned anything over the last few months, it is that knowing where your tools are is pretty important when doing any type of DIY or renovation project, and I had absolutely no idea where anything was at all. So I decided that before we go too much further with renovation projects, I need to fix that. So the first thing I did was grab all of the tools from all of the various places we'd shoved them over the years, and this is actually part of our problem. Tool storage has been an issue forever. We do have a shed, but I basically won't go in there because of the amount of huge spiders that live there, and I'm a complete wimp when it comes to creepy crawlies. So if the tools that I need regularly go into the shed, I will never do anything. So we moved the smaller tools into the house, but Blaise and I could never agree on how to store them. Blaise would organise them in one way and I could never find anything. Then it would all get messy and I'd reorganise them, and then she couldn't work out my system either. And then we also just didn't have enough space allocated anywhere for them. So anyway, long story short, I think I've come up with a system that will work. Hopefully. And that system is pretty much the system we use for everything in the house. Boxes and labels. So I've got us a whole bunch of transparent or translucent boxes with lids, and that's so that we can see through them and have an idea of what's in the box. And then I cleared out a space in our utility room for them to go. And then I basically looked at the amount of shelving we had, and I tested how many boxes I could fit into the space, and that gave me a clue of how many categories I needed, because one box equals one category. And I decided to go with organising the tools for the space we have rather than organising the tools and then finding the space. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, the space I allocated was in the utility room, which is part laundry room, part storage, and currently also part greenhouse. Having that extra room added onto the house was quite a big cost for us a few years ago, but it has been worth it. So after finding all of the tools, the next step was to sort them out. I chose fairly big categories and sorted the tools into those categories. So the categories themselves are pretty vague and probably don't make a lot of sense to most people, because I kind of organised things into the type of project we're likely to be using the tools for. So as an example, I have a painting and decorating box. And the idea is that when it comes to doing a project that involves something to do with decorating, we will know that the tool we need is in that box. It's sort of organisation by association. So the other categories I have is everyday tools. This is things that we use most often and need to be used for pretty much every project. So it's things like screwdrivers, spanners, hammers, that sort of thing. I also have a category that I've called proper DIY, which is not a particularly descriptive category title, unless you're myself or Blaise, that is. And that's because this box holds all of the tools we need for things that feel like a bigger project, or things that are more than your basic DIY. So things like plastering, our chisels and stuff like that, anything that's for heavy, dutier projects. The next category is cutting things, which is fairly self-explanatory. It's saws and things that are needed to cut bits of wood or whatever we're doing that needs cutting. And then the last category is for screws, nuts and spare parts, which I also feel is fairly self-explanatory. So that's just where we put all of our spare things, our spare nuts, screws, whatever else it is that we might have. So that's the categories I've chosen that fit the type of projects that we tend to do. I'm sure it will become chaos again as soon as we add a new skill, but that's a future us problem. While I was at it, I also organised and made space for the plants I'm trying to grow in here, and I organised my gardening tools into boxes as well. So I am feeling pretty organised right now. I labelled everything just using our little label maker. I might use the Cricut at some point to make more permanent labels, but I wanted to make sure that the tool storage works before doing anything too permanent. And it is just a matter of putting the tools in their new home and I am done. It has been a few days since I organised this and we have had to find tools, and it has worked. I'm pretty happy that I did know exactly where the tool was and how to find it. We do have a lot more projects upcoming, but we are largely working on the garden at the minute to try and get some things growing and sorted for spring. Like I said, I will show you that in an update for a future video, but I'll probably wait until we've completed phase 1 of the garden project so that you can see that in its totality. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that helped give you a little update on what we've been doing so far to move our home renovation projects forward. It does feel like we've been mostly fixing problems that have arisen rather than working on any new projects, but that's okay. Home maintenance is part of home ownership, and I have found that putting so much work into the house is helping me fall in love with our little home again, which is lovely. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely day. I will see you in the next video.